lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It's Slay's podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be reviewing Nope, which was released July 22nd, 2022, exclusively in theaters. It seems a little silly to do this, considering Jordan Peele's pedigree in the world of horror, but Rowan, how familiar are you with Jordan Peele's filmography? Would you call yourself a fan? And by extension, were you looking forward to Nope based on his previous films?
Yeah, I mean, I think like most of the world, I'm pretty hyped on the Jordan Peele train.
Yeah.
I was familiar with him like as a comedian, and I'm sure as everyone else, like the Key and Peele show, kind of like one of the great sketch comedy shows that come after Chappelle show. Kind of for this new generation. I also was like a big fan of like Keanu when they did like him and Peele.
Oh,
did
you
the
like
movie.
that?
I thought it was pretty funny for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I remember the rumblings. I remember like, hey, he's this huge like horror guy, huge geek. He's working on a movie. And I remember being like, oh yeah, like I wonder what that piece of shit's gonna be like. And then, we got Get Out, and I remember seeing Get Out, and I said on the episode we did about Fresh, I said I felt the same way about Fresh when I saw Get Out. Like, I pretty much knew I was, like, in the witnessing greatness, watching Get Out. I was like, okay, like, this guy's, like, on another level. And then, like, from then on, I mean, there's only been one other movie other than this one. But Us, like, made sure I was there opening night. I think I saw Us twice in the theater.
Did you guys do an episode on Us, or am I?
I think me and Exilia did like a first reaction coming right out of it, and we were pretty positive on Us. I think if I remember, she was a little bigger on it than I was. I didn't like it as much as Get Out. I did enjoy it, but I mean, Get Out just rocked my world. So, yeah, when I heard about this, and I was like, what? This is going to be like a Close Encounters movie? Like, we're going, like, big. It's kind of different because it doesn't have, like, this slasher type feel to it. Not as grounded. I was super curious. So, yeah, I was super pumped about Nope. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I was lucky enough to catch Get Out. I think it was at a really early screening of it, probably about a month or month and a half at least before release, when I was living in Toronto at the time. And when I left, I remember thinking it was very good, but I had some reservations about some of the comedy, specifically that one point in the movie where it kind of hops to the best friend for a while, and it almost feels like a skit at times, like comedy skits. But every single time I rewatch Get Out, I get more and more from like the screenplay specifically about how clever it all is, and it has quickly grown to be one of my favorite horror movies of the last 10 years for sure. Us, I've only ever seen once, and I'm similar to yourself. I wasn't that big on it. I do appreciate aspects of it. I think it's a movie that kind of just unravels, I find personally, the further you get into it. But regardless, I was looking forward to Nope ever since they released that poster. I feel like it must have been almost a year and a half, 2 years ago now, of just a cloud with some streamers coming out of it, and it just says Nope. So yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. I saw the first trailer, and it's one of those few trailers that I actually watched, and I was like, oh man, this looks excellent. Kind of poured over almost every frame of it and discussed it with my friends and tried to piece together what it was about, and whether or not all of that was correct, we'll maybe get into later. But yeah, I've been looking forward to Nope. It was one of those I'd always have to sit in the theater and avoid that second trailer like the plague, because I've heard everybody say it's full of spoilers and spoils the whole movie, and
it's rough.
We'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that later if that's accurate. But yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and yeah, I'm excited to get into it. So yeah, maybe we'll kick it over to the trailer and get things started.
Did you see a UFO in that cloud?
Yep. Nope.
I ain't never seen nothing like this.
No.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Run!
Oh, yeah. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Hell no.
Nope.
What you just heard is from Nope, written and directed by Jordan Peele, and the story is as follows. Caretakers at a California horse ranch bear witness to an uncanny and chilling discovery. A very vague synopsis, but, we're trying not to spoil anything for anybody here, in the spoiler-free section at least, and here on Now Slaying, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free, and like we've mentioned, that second trailer is specifically quite spoilery, so we're gonna maybe not discuss that too much. That literally has stuff from the third act in it, so let's keep it more reserved, for our listeners' benefits. But with that in mind, Rowan, what were your spoiler-free thoughts on Nope?
I think like us, the rest of the world, I didn't realize was super hyped on this, so I went to the Thursday, the early showing, of this, and our theater was pretty much sold out. It was packed.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was buzzing. It was buzzing in there. You could hear people. They were talking about Get Out. They were talking about us, and the people were trying to guess what was gonna be the themes, what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, my initial thought is an IMAX movie. It was pretty epic visually.
I agree. Yeah.
I think even just from the first trailer, you would know that this is definitely Jordan Peele at his most boombastic self ever. This is him really, I think, leaning into and knowing, I think, kind of his clout and what the culture thinks of him, and filmmaking and its importance. So he knew he could kind of get away with doing something really big on this, which I was I'm all for. I like to see it kind of grow in scale.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is a very big swing for sure. This movie, yeah.
So I mean, spoiler free. I thought there was definitely a lot of interesting ideas. We'll talk about more in the spoiler area, I'm sure, but he definitely went directions with it that were unique, that we've never seen before. So as always, I think even if you're not big on this movie, you have to appreciate just a director willing to really do something different compared to everyone else. It would have been really safe for him to just kind of do a generic by the numbers alien movie, and he didn't do that. And yeah, I highly encourage, you need to see this in the theater. This is a theater movie if there has ever been a theater movie. Yeah, you need to do that. What are some of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement there. I think this thing on IMAX, it was really singing to me. I was constantly wowed by the cinematography, and the way it is, a lot of it is kind of angled towards the sky, and I felt like I was always watching the sky, which is a very cool aspect considering what the movie's about, and as Rowan mentioned, some of the alien aspects of it. Basically, right from the beginning, I felt like I was in the hands of an accomplished filmmaker, which is always a really nice feeling when you're in the theater, because there's so many movies that they'll start off on a false note or get off to a wrong start. And a lot of the time I'm kind of wondering okay, where is this going? But with this movie in particular, I was vibing with it almost right from the beginning. I loved the opening credits. I loved some of the initial scenes and about how they were not at all what I was expecting, which we'll get into later. But yeah, it was basically I had a lot of faith in the movie that I was going to answer a lot of my questions and how things were going to be kind of all wrapped up by the end. And I think for the most part, they were paid off. I think the chemistry between Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya is amazing as brother and sister in this movie. I really love their relationship. It's kind of the heart of the movie. That's kind of mirrored at points in it, and I was really feeling it by the end. I was definitely with them for the whole journey that they go on in this movie. And I really enjoyed it. Some small qualms with it. I'd probably say the score to me didn't always work. There's parts where it's going a little bit zany or silly, and then also like Western inspired, and then sometimes sci-fi inspired, sometimes horror. It's a little bit jumbled. Maybe if I kind of spent more time listening to it in a vacuum, maybe I'd like it a little bit more, but I did notice it at some points in the movie as a little bit intrusive, and what I was feeling personally, I didn't find the music was really reflecting at times. And similar, that's also like some of the humor. Like every now and then I'd find it would go for one beat, maybe a little bit too many for the humor, and it would almost deflate the tension too much. It's a minor qualm, but overall, I basically agree with what you say. You have to see this in theaters. This is a big scale summer horror movie, and I mean, it shows. It looks excellent. I was very much into this movie for the entire runtime. I wasn't bored. I was glued to the screen. I couldn't wait to see what comes next. Are there a couple of silly moments and silly reveals and parts that you really just have to buy and go along with it? 100%. But I think it's willing. You know, it's a ride you should be willing to take. I think everyone should go out and check this in theaters, I would say. So yeah, big recommendation from me. I would recommend it.
Yeah, well, and I was gonna say too, like, because obviously after I saw it, like, I think like most of us, movie nerds, like, I'm reading all the reviews, I'm reading like the op-ed pieces on it, all that kind of stuff, and I did actually that word, like, I did continuously hear like about silly moments, things like that, which to me, like, I don't think should deter anyone, because I thought it was kind of interesting, because I'm like, I'm thinking about, because I think if anything, like, over horror, this is definitely like a sci-fi spectacle, and
yes,
and I was like, well, I really enjoyed it just because I was like, well, I mean, these movies are usually inherently silly, like, even if they don't want to be.
Yeah, there were just points at it where I felt like it was kind of above just kind of like a throwback to like a 70s or 80s or even earlier, like a schlocky sci-fi tale. And there were other moments where he was really leaning into it. And I vibed a little bit more with the elevated part of it, which I'm sure is not a surprise to anybody. But yeah, I mean, we can maybe get into specifics in the spoiler discussion, but like I'm saying, it's minor qualms.
Well, and I was going to say too, like, one thing I think would be good for the spoiler-free areas, I will say that, and I don't want to say it till I guess, turn people off, because I think people should definitely go see it. But I think this is definitely probably, especially thematically and themes, I think this is the most he's ever challenged an audience to really, like, have to think about the themes in it. This isn't like laid out pretty much straightforward, like Get Out. And, we saw with us that he went a little more complicated.
Cerebral. Yeah.
And this is definitely, I think, way more cerebral than Us, which I think was an interesting move, especially for like such a big summer, like, blockbuster movie where you could definitely, like any of these movies, like, you could definitely go into this and be like, all right, I'm shutting my brain off. I'm just going to watch this as a popcorn flick. And I think he's almost elevated the themes to the point where if that's what you're going in as, like, cool, you're not going to understand the rest of it anyway, so.
Yeah, I still think you'd get a lot out of it as a popcorn flick. I mean, obviously, for those people that just like action movies and stuff, they might be bored for some sequences, but overall, I think it is pretty exciting. Going back to what you were saying about some of the weirder moments, I will say that some of the weirder visual elements or some of the weird ways the movie kind of twists and turns, I think it is establishing some new iconography for this sort of genre. Like, I don't want to get into the specifics to spoil things, but there are things in this movie that people will recognize as from this movie for sure. And whether or not you think that's cool or if it works, that's besides the point. He is definitely establishing new things, and I mean they're gonna be around for years to come. I can tell, like, when I was watching it I was like, yep, this is gonna be lined up along some the side of some other sci-fi creations for sure.
Yeah, and I didn't say it, sorry guys. I recommend it also.
Another recommendation from Rowan. But with that, I think it's about time we cut to the spoiler discussion. Yeah, it's that time. We're going to get into the spoiler-filled discussion for Nope. Rowan, do you want to lead the discussion? Is there anything that you just can't wait to get off your chest that we've kind of been tiptoeing around in the spoiler-freed section of the show?
So I'm curious. I don't know if I'm... I feel like I'm the only one out of everyone I've heard talk about this movie and just, some of the bad, some of the good reviews. So my favorite parts of this movie... not the alien parts.
Okay. What's your favorite parts of it? Go for it.
I want to talk Gordy.
Gordy's great. Gordy was a huge surprise to me. And that's the opening scene of the movie, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'm pretty sure it's Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, we kind of get like, we don't really know what's going on. We're getting the point of view of Stephen Young's character, like Jupe or Ricky. But, like, we don't know that it's him in the opening. So we're just kind of seeing, this ape from under a table. We know, like, people are dead. There's people screaming.
There's a blinking applause symbol in the background, or sign in the background. That's very eerie.
Yeah, like, can I get like a quick 90-minute movie on this Gordy?
I agree. I really like those segments as well. And the way the movies broke up, you got a whole Gordy section in it.
Yeah, and... like, terrifying. Like, one thing with, Get Out and Us and stuff like that, like, as much as I love them, like, I was never, like, scared or, like, had any feelings like that in them. I'm like, oh yeah, this is, like, smart and fun and all that. Gordy scenes were really, in a long time, like, I can't think of the last time I was in the theater that I was like, this is, like, actually, like, disturbing and, like, frightening. The sound, like, oh my god, the sound in this movie is, like, A+. This is, like, the sound to me takes everything, takes the cake.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that a little bit more in the spoiler-free section, but yeah, the sound, and specifically in IMAX, it was amazing. Like, obviously, just going through all the seats. But yeah, it was also in the horror moments. It was very much, I was very tense and kind of on edge for segments of this movie. I don't know if I'd say like, oh, I was scared, but I was very much like into it. And I was very much like, oh my God, what exactly is going to happen here? And yeah, that Gordy segment is very unnerving, especially just like seeing the creature kind of unleash and, bash and, well, disfigure that one girl, and who knows what happens to the other guy. I'm not sure, but
yeah, and we're getting IMAX sound effects of just like bones crunching and just like these like primal sounds, like just straight up killing all of these people in the studio.
When you're mentioning the sounds, I think it's a natural progression just to go to the sound of the UFO, which at times you just hear all of the screaming people in it. And I don't know if the UFO itself is kind of resonating those sounds or not, but it reminded me a lot of the Nightmare Bear in Annihilation. That kind of has the woman scream and as it's like creeping closer. It was very, very unnerving, like when the one of the first horses is gone, and then you can hear like it's whinnying, echoing through the hills as it's zooming by, and it's like crying and whatnot. It's a weird choice, and a choice that I thought wouldn't work for me. But as the movie went on, I was very much like, this was the right choice. Like, rather than just like a hum of a UFO or something, right? It was very much I guess we got to explain what the UFO is, but it's actually a creature in this movie, which was a complete surprise to me. I don't know if you were at all expecting it to be that, like a monster.
Not at all.
Yeah, like an organic life form. But basically, like, before its prey or before its lunch is digested, you can hear everybody or everything in there just crying. And then basically once it digests it all and eats them all, they just kind of stop. Like, that's it. It's just silence. And it was very unnerving.
Yeah, well, I guess just because I said so much of this film is tied with the sound, like, you know, I'm sure it'll be many people's favorite scene that, you know, that involves the UFO and that stuff. But like, so when he goes to the theme park, sucks everybody up, and we get like the camera views inside of what we know later is like this beam,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and we're just getting. Because, you know, you have these people getting sucked up. You have some people that aren't necessarily, like, they're screaming, but, you know, I don't think they really know what's happening yet.
Yeah.
And just, like, the visuals, like, we're seeing that it's, like, kind of tissue or, like, a stomach or something.
Yeah, I had no clue what it was. I was kind of thinking, like, oh, is this, like, some sack to kind of, you know, hold, like, the life form or something as it's transported or something, but like I had no clue. I never even thought it was an organic life form at that point.
Yeah, neither
I was
did
basically
I.
like, yeah, I was like, what is going on here? This is wild.
But the visuals, like the visuals with the sound, it was so unnerving. It was so like it was claustrophobic. They did such a good
100%.
job of just be like, you know, you feeling like you're in there, you can't breathe. And I was just like, you know, bravo. Like I said, I've never seen anything like it. Like, it just blew my mind.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because it's in great contrast to the rest of the movie, which I mentioned in the spoiler-free discussion. It is very airy, it's very wide, a lot of long shots, a lot of very wide angle, you know, far pull out silhouette shots and whatnot, and it's very much showcasing, I guess, like the Californian desert, like the mountainous regions and whatnot. It's gorgeous cinematography. So then to be presented with, you're basically so claustrophobic that some people can't even really be breathing or screaming as they're kind of held in this creature. It certainly caught me off guard. There was a lot in this movie I didn't know about, and I was so happy to not know about it. Like, I didn't know Keith David was in the movie. I don't know if you knew before
No,
you
I
started
didn't.
watching.
What a pleasant surprise.
I was like, fuck, Rowan's gonna slay this just because Keith David's in the beginning. And that was an excellent kind of like intro to those characters as well, because it was just, I don't know what it reminded me of, but it was just like I guess like a science fiction mystery show, like an X-Files or Twilight Zone or something like that. Just when all the things were raining from the sky, I was just like, what the hell is going on? I was like, is there some magnetism or something weird like this happening? I had no clue. And then just to see like his father, OJ's father, just on the horse and, you know, kind of slink over to the side. I don't know, man. It was a great opening. I was just like, I'm 100. Well, obviously I was 100% in anyways with the Gordy scene, but then the credits and then this scene, I was like, man, this is an excellent 10 minutes of cinema right here. I loved it. And then, yeah, obviously Keith David's always a welcome cameo for sure.
It was amazing, and I mean, obviously, I think they've done a good job in the press the last couple days of really pushing, you know, Jordan Peele's kind of been pushing his John Carpenter influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, just a great nod to, you know, obviously The Thing and having, like, just an icon, a horror icon like Keith David in it.
What do you think about, like, some of the sillier aspects? Like, let's say, like, near the end of the movie where the creature just keeps transforming and becoming, like, larger and weirder and whatnot, and more, like, completely alien and unlike anything we've ever seen before. Like, were you ever checked out at all at any of those moments, or did you like when it turns into almost like a hot air balloon and then into like almost like a godlike being or something?
As it was going on, it really threw me off because obviously, you know, we've never had anything like that. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's unfolding. It kind of has like this like origami, like Japanese artwork cloth feel. Like, it looks like it's a scarf or just like something really beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I'll be honest, like in the theater, I didn't know what to think. As I've thought about it now that I'm, you know, like 2 days removed, I really liked it just cause with the themes that I was picking up from the movie overall, I just think it made the most sense. I mean, I think, one of the readings of this film, you can definitely take away, like, about like the environment and animals and man's relationship with animals. So the more I thought about it, and as I have to comprehend that, this isn't a UFO, this is like an actual organic being.
Yes, yeah.
I really liked it because I kind of thought of it as like peacocking. But I mean, like, there's lots of I don't want to say predators because I think most people are going to come out of this looking at this as like, oh, there's this predator in the sky that's killing everybody. But one of the things I think is fascinating dealing with those themes is, I mean, we don't know it's a predator. It's an organic being. We don't know what it understands. Like, it might not understand that it's a predator to us. Like, it's simply just doing what it does and surviving. But to me, the whole unveiling the many layers, animals in the wild, like, they have these defense mechanisms, which are usually very beautiful.
Yeah.
But in the wild, mean like I'm gonna attack. Like I feel
it's like, watch
threatened.
out for me. I'm severely poisonous. Like, don't eat me or don't step on me or whatever,
Yeah, so, I mean, that's kind of what I took it at. I saw other readings of it where people were kind of saying, oh, like, because, we kind of get, like, as it unravels, we see the middle kind of comes out and stuff, and I saw definitely another reading of this film is about, surveillance and, how we watch things, how things watch us. And so I saw a lot of people saying, oh, that's like the eye of the beast. Like, it's looking at us.
Yeah, I think it also kind of mimics almost like those old countdown screens in like the film, like in the theater. Like, it kind of pulses with the square and it pulses. And it was almost like almost like a countdown, which, I mean, is definitely intentional on Peele's part. I mean, this movie is very concerned with film and filmmaking and people's history with filmmaking, but more importantly, Black people's history with filmmaking, how often they've been overlooked throughout it as well. Right from, I think the very first trailer talks about the history of film and about how the first thing ever captured on film was a black man on a horse and no one knows, the jockey's name at all, So it's a movie that, obviously, if the creature has something to do with filmmaking, it's right at home in it. But yeah, that was basically in the spoiler-free discussion when we were discussing that it kind of brings new things into the sci-fi canon. You always see like these lists of different alien life forms that are iconic, and you go, oh, it's the xenomorph, and oh, it's whatever else. I'm blanking on other alien life forms right now, but you usually see lists of like 20 of them, 25 of them, and you can just tell by the silhouette which movie they're from, Arrival, whatever. This creature will be on there. Probably not as the flying saucer because it looks like a flying saucer, but as the weird, ethereal, like I'm saying, almost like a godlike, beautiful, basically what you're saying, flowing, billowing creature, that'll definitely be on there because it is so weird and so out there that it's a moment in the movie that you're really with it, or you're very much like, what the hell happened to this movie? It went off the rails 40 minutes ago and now it's trash, I think is kind of what happens to a lot of people with this movie.
I agree with that, because even like in the theater I was in, like, you could see people actively just disengage with it, and it was just too weird for them. It was too not the normal that they were like, there was people sitting beside me that you could audibly hear. They were like, fuck this.
Yeah, there was a guy, my theater wasn't nearly as packed as yours, probably only about 20 people in the IMAX, so it was fairly empty for an IMAX theater. But behind me, like, there was a guy, he just started like noodling, tapping his feet when the movie kind of got to that point. I could tell he was so checked out, and when the movie was done, he was kind of like, well, that sucked, and they left, and then down the stairs, I heard other people discussing it, saying like, oh, I think I like that more than Get Out. Like, I love that, So it was funny, I had the two polar ends of the spectrum, essentially, when I was leaving the theater.
Well, I was going to say, too, like, I was interested, like, I've given some of my semi-half-baked ideas, like, Did you pull any other themes from it, like any of the other parts or stuff I didn't talk about? Like I said, I think this is gonna be a movie that just gets pulled apart for the next one, and I think he's got a lot going on here.
Yeah, I'm only an hour out of when I saw this movie. So yeah, the most obvious theme to me was definitely about like man's place with animals, about us mistreating animals or us domesticating animals, which some could argue as maybe it's another form of mistreatment. Putting them on display, showcasing them. I mean, the whole point of the Haywood family ranch is to use these horses in Hollywood productions, right, to make a living, just like how Gordy on the set was basically, probably the drawing factor of the show. Like, oh my God, look at this family sitcom with a chimp,
Yeah.
And then ultimately how the creature, how Ricky uses it to kind of draw a crowd, or kind of, he kind of wrangles it a little bit and tries to feed it and whatnot. So that was the most obvious kind of theme to me coming out of the movie, which I think kind of Jordan Peele, I thought he was kind of siding on the fact that, or on the side that we're bad or we can just stay away from it. And I thought he was going to end with basically this creature was going to like fly off or just, kind of leave or something, because it was so beautiful and different. But it was interesting because it returns to its saucer-shaped form, and I guess it's almost like things that can appear so beautiful and nice can still be predatory and whatnot as well. So that was like one aspect I got from it. And then, yes, obviously, with a Jordan Peele film, I'm always looking for the racial, the socially conscious message, which for this was very much, just like I said, the black people's role in film. It was right from back in the jockey to then OJ's father, Otis, about how he was very, very much like, we need to develop a good relationship with these filmmakers so we can get back for the sequel, so we can make a life for ourselves, that we keep supporting ourselves. And then ultimately how Emerald manages to get the Oprah shot, at the end of the movie, where it's essentially cementing her and her brother's involvement in this phenomenon through filmmaking, that hopefully they will get their due recognition, or at least, if not get their recognition, then they're retracing the steps of their great grandfather. So that was kind of mirrored throughout the movie. Other than those kind of two themes, or those two, aspects, I never really saw anything else on my initial viewing. I'm sure if I go read some reviews, I'll be like, oh God, I missed a huge one. That's always the case. But yeah, that's kind of what I took away from it. And obviously, like I mentioned in the spoiler-free discussion, this isn't a theme, but the family dynamics, the brother and sister, their love for each other and how they were ribbing each other. And, I was very much on board with that, because as someone who has siblings, I was very much vibing with that as well.
I was going to say the only other real thing that I guess I'll call it like a half-baked idea right now, because I've tried to listen to some podcasts and read some stuff, and I haven't seen anyone talk about it, so I'm like, maybe I'm the only one that brought it. But like you, I'm like, all right, Jordan Peele, I got the critiques and the comments about cinema and surveillance and animals, but I'm like, obviously, we've got to have, there's always some heavy racial commentary. And I pulled a lot of it from the Gordy stuff.
Yeah.
Where, I kind of traced it in my mind. As soon as I saw it on the screen, I was going back, to thinking about just, I call it like the King Kong-isms of, that apes and chimps have been used as symbols of black people in white film, especially older white film, for forever.
I very much got that as well. I as soon as I saw a chimp, I was like, he would not choose a chimp for just, let's just choose an animal. A chimp is cute, right? There's a reason for it being a chimp, that very much like what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so, to me, I kind of, my vibes just from that opening scene is I was like, all right, so we're going to talk about the exploitation of black people in cinema and, black actors, whether it be, specifically black actors, but black directors, whoever, and that they're just kind of like this tokenism Because, I mean, Gordy is this token, animal in the show. Everyone else in the show is white other than Ricky. Ricky is like an Asian kid. Yeah, everyone else is like white. It just kind of like middle class ABC Family type show.
Yeah.
And, Gordy snaps. Gordy snaps. They make a lot of like kind of subtle when they're talking about Gordy, especially when Ricky's like telling the story and stuff like that. They just make very subtle comments that, go all the way back into like Birth of a Nation. And so they talk about like, oh, well, Gordy snapped because, someone said something about the jungle. And it was just all of these words that are very loaded, for Black people in cinema and just in life in general.
Yeah, and I mean, basically what you're saying with the jungle and why Gordy snapped, they're kind of explaining the SNL skit, and Steven Yeun's character, he's kind of looking back on it and kind of like laughing with it, is like, you never heard about that? Like, how could have you not heard about this? And he has a whole shrine dedicated to what you would assume would be probably the most traumatic moment in his life. But for whatever reason, he kind of takes a sick pleasure out of like showcasing it all and looks back on it as like rosy times. He's a little bit just like upset that he couldn't have continued the show because it was like really good for his career and whatnot. It's very much like they are not concerned at all with the people or with Gordy or anything about it. It's very much like a laughing matter / it's basically like we're going to forget about the trauma and we're going to forget about all the pain that was caused, and we're going to choose to focus on what we want to focus on, which, that happens all the time throughout history.
I think it ties in with all the other themes that we're talking about is just, this idea, capitalism does not care about your trauma.
Yeah.
Even though Ricky is traumatized as a child, like he still has to exist in like this capitalist framework where like he's got to exploit it to make money. He has to exploit the Haywoods' disadvantages, in order to like buy up all their horses. And I mean, realistically, he's trying to buy their entire business from up under them for, pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, no, I like that reading of the movie for sure. Like, that makes sense to me completely. What do you think about Keke Palmer in the movie? I absolutely loved Keke Palmer in this movie, and I don't know if I've actually seen her in a whole lot of things. I just checked her IMDb, and there's a couple of other movies I've seen, but she is amazing in this movie. She's just a breath of fresh air every single time she's on frame, I thought.
Yeah, I really liked her. I'm not like a huge Keke Palmer fan. She's definitely had like the last year she's had like some scandals. She said some odd insensitive things about people on food stamps and stuff.
Oh, really? Well, I'm talking about the character and her acting. Yeah, I don't know about her as a person. Yeah.
And I mean, I just feel, as my age, like, I was familiar with Keke Palmer as like the kind of Avril Lavigne-ish Nickelodeon. Like, I think she did like pop punk music when she was like a preteen or
gotcha. Okay.
something like that. I mean, she was on the Nickelodeon, like she was part of that scene. But I can't say I was like overly excited she was in it. I don't really have any overall feelings. And I thought she did really well. Like, I was kind of worried at first. I was like, am I going to get sick of this character? Because kind of like what you were talking about with Get Out, I was like, is this just like,
comedic relief, just like really over the top?
Comedic relief.
Yeah.
It's going to have like no real bearing on the entire movie, but I mean, she does, and I think her aspects of the film really worked. Like, we got to see a lot of stuff where I kind of took it as Peele's comment on Western. Obviously, he's like highly influenced with Western movies, but the gendering in this genre, like she goes into the speech about, like I wanted to get trained with the horses, but like Dad did it with you because you're a guy. and like it's this guy thing that she had no access into. Yeah, so I thought she did really well. I mean, it was really hard because if Jordan Peele is like batting 100 in this, like I thought Daniel was batting 1,000. I thought he was awesome in this.
It is an interesting performance by him. It is very subdued and very, I don't know, I always feel like there's something bubbling beneath the surface whenever he's on screen. I was expecting him to just absolutely explode and lose his mind at one point, but like he doesn't. He's just, the character is really interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed, like I've said multiple times, their dichotomy, just because he was so level-headed, so like soft-spoken, so like it seemed like he was always thinking or choosing his words carefully, whereas she was just, you know, a firebrand, running her mouth, cracking jokes all the time, the life of the party. It was a great contrast between the two characters. That's why it worked so well for me. If both of them were either way, one way would have been way too much, it would have been annoying, and the other way would have been like, okay, this is probably too boring if all the characters are very, you know, quiet. But he was excellent, and also very heroic near the end of the movie as well, and fearless.
Yeah, I thought he killed it. Like you said, it was just a very interesting take. I kind of took it as, you know, another play on like lead male characters in westerns, like that Clint Eastwood type. Like, I don't say anything, like, you know, just kind of very minimal words, like brooding, but obviously is like the most intelligent in the whole film, like kind of just gets what's going on, does what needs to be done.
Yeah, you could tell, and I just mentioned this, but you can tell he's always thinking, but it's not like he's just pointlessly thinking. He's thinking about like what's happening and putting the clues together. Like there's a point where they're out for supper, I think, or grabbing lunch with the guy from the tech store, and he just winds up saying, like, I forget what the revelation is, but, we can't look at it. He's like, I don't think we should look at it, or, we shouldn't look at it. And they're just kind of like, why are you still thinking about that? Like, we don't want to be thinking about that. And he is thinking about that. He's thinking about how to overcome it. He's thinking about what's best for his horses, what's best for his ranch, and it's a very like likable character. That's what I've said. I'm very hot on this movie. I like a lot of things about it. One little minor thing, which I don't know if it's explained at all or if I missed it. Why is the cloud just in place the entire movie if there's like no weird explanation for it? Like there was no point in the movie, right, where the alien like admits a cloud or anything around itself when it's like down near the ground or anything, right? Because I know it's in place and it's using it for hiding, and they make such a big deal out of it with the cameras. I was expecting like, oh, is there like a mothership hidden up there? Is there something else hidden up there in that cloud? Is there something admitting, you know, the cloud? So that was one thing, a very small thing that I thought about instantly. I was like, okay, cool. It was a cool alien organic life form, but like, what about the cloud? You know, I was wondering about the cloud.
Oh, see, I didn't care. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, like I said, it was a minor qualm for me. Like I said, and like how some of the humor every now and then didn't work for me. I can't think of like a specific moment now, but I know for sure there was a moment where I think it may have been when OJ was like hiding somewhere. I think he winds up saying something funny, or he winds up doing something or stumbling or something. I can't remember what it was. There's like a bit of comedy in this moment when he's being like chased by the UFO at one point. And I was kind of like, oh, I didn't need that because I'm really on edge here. And, you know, obviously a rational mind probably knows Daniel Kaluuya is not going to die an hour and 10 minutes into this movie or something. But you know, you get wrapped up in the story, you get wrapped up in the movie, and you're not thinking rationally, right? Like that's what a good movie does. It pulls you out of like, if you have a critical mind, or it pulls you out of the act that you're actually watching a movie. You're just there, right? And that's what I got from this. So
like, what did you think of the ending? Killing the UFO with the giant, like
the
Stephen
giant
Young.
Stephen Yeun, yeah,
yeah, balloon. And I'm thinking more specifically too, like, so she gets the shot, but then we get Daniel, like, kind of coming out from the fog on the horse, like, kind of this iconic Western image that we've seen 8 million times. I was curious what you thought, because I feel like everything else I've heard on it that I thought differently. Like, everyone's like, oh, like, you kind of have the hero shows back up, like, we did it. I thought he was dead. I thought it was like a vision.
I would agree with you that I would think he was dead, especially with the down yonder sign above his head and all that. But the fact that she reacts so, like, emphatically to it, he holds on her face for probably about 30 seconds as she's going through, like, the emotions of, like, oh my God, he's, like, truly alive. And then she's, like, happy crying. Like, there's a moment where you don't know if she's sad crying or happy crying. And then she winds up happy crying. So I was kind of like, okay, it must be real. I almost thought the movie was going to end on her just crying, like kind of like happy tears, and left the interpretation on whether or not it's like happy tears that I survived or happy tears because OJ made it out type of thing. So I did interpret it literally as he was alive in the end. And
I figured that was kind of a nod to, like, like a Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh,
like,
I think it is a nod.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and obviously the man on the horse at the end of the movie, and specifically in this movie, a black man on a horse at the end of the movie. It was funny when I saw it. I was like, oh, this reminds me of Django, which at the time, that was probably the first time I saw a movie like that it ends with, this heroic, like, Western, black man on a horse at the end of the movie triumphing. And I really liked it. I thought it was cute to have the down yonder sign there. It was a great use. And that's kind of the thing. Everything in this movie that I kind of noticed throughout it does wind up paying off. I love how she kills the alien and captures the shot with the old pail, like in that amusement park with the well, because that was earlier in the movie and I didn't really think anything of it when she took the picture. I completely forgot that there was a camera there. And then right at the end of the movie, I was like, oh shit, there was the camera there. And obviously this would be like coin operated. It's not electronically activated and all this stuff. And I was like, this is awesome. So I did really like it. I don't know, once again, like thematically what it means by actually blowing up the alien rather than it leaving or them learning to coexist somehow or something like that. I'm not sure what it means. But I look forward to seeing a video essay on it, and personally in the theater, it worked for me. I loved her as like a final girl. I thought it was cool. It worked for me. All right. Well, do you have anything else you want to discuss, or should we just get in the rating this guy?
I mean, I think we should get in the rating. Just go see the movie. I don't know why you would listen this far in and not see it.
To be fair, in the spoiler section, we do spoil everything, but it, like, us talking about it doesn't do it justice for what the movie is, right?
It doesn't at all. Yeah.
And we forget to explain many things and whatnot. We could just get wrapped up in the discussion. So yes, obviously go see Nope if you haven't already. But if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So Rowan, what would you give Nope? And also, what is your Jordan Peele ranking of films? What's your favorite, the least favorite?
I'm gonna give this the world's strongest yay, and I'll explain. Everything I've talked about is why I'm giving it the world's strongest yay.
Yeah, you've been wildly positive on it. So.
I love this. I love it. So and maybe it deserves a slay. I don't know. The only reason I'm not giving it a slay is because. And I'll just get into it. I'll get into the three. So to me, Us is automatically getting knocked down, the number 3. I think, like we said, Us just has a lot of just story issues as it goes on. Just things that don't make sense in it that could have been cleaned up. Nope is definitely my second favorite. I really contemplated on putting it in my first. And it's not really Nope's fault, but, I mean, Get Out is number 1 just because that's like a lightning in the bottle. The movie came out at the exact time in the culture it needed to come out. Like, it held a lot of weight just because of the subject matter. And, maybe we'll think differently of this, in 3 or 4 years. But we live in a culture, like, everyone still talks, references the sunken place.
Oh yeah.
Like, it just that became iconic in our culture. But this is up there. Like, this is it's biting at the butt of Get Out. Like, I really, really did enjoy this. Like I said, for all the reasons that I said, and it's fantastic. I'm loving it. I'm hoping Jordan Peele, plays with some different genres and really goes out of his comfort zone again, because I'm here for it. What about you, Colton? What would you rate it, and what's your order for Jordan Peele movies?
So I think this is a now slaying first. I don't know if I've given a slay on now slaying. I'm not someone who is willing to throw a slay out usually after seeing something once, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. And maybe it's just because I've been working more closely with television and film as of late, so a lot of even just the filmmaking aspects really spoke to me. And like I said, the few issues I have with the movie, like the score, or some of the silly aspects of the third act, I can explain and kind of still really like look up to them. And so yeah, I think I'm gonna give this a slay. I don't know. I felt so passionately when I was watching this movie. I was into it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and a couple of the little qualms I have with it is probably why I wouldn't give it a 5 out of 5 and call it an absolute masterpiece. But I think it's a slay. I think it's worthy of, on Letterboxd, I'd probably give this like a 9 out of 10 type of thing, a 4.5. So it's a slay for me. I really enjoyed it personally. I liked Nope more than on its first watch, more than I liked Get Out on the first watch. But what I will say is Get Out, once again, every single time I watch it, I get more out of it. So I will give Get Out the edge by like a sliverous margin. Like I probably have them both rated at a 4.5 out of 5. That's, slight lead to Get Out. And then, yeah, it's Nope. And then Us it's kind of trailing. I can't remember if I gave that a 2.5 out of 5 or a 3 out of 5. It's definitely weaker to me. But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed Nope, and hopefully all you listening will enjoy it as well. And if you made it this far in the podcast, it's probably time to plug some things. So if you're not following us already, you can do so at It Slays Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Slasher, Letterboxd. We post all over the place, so if you're not following us already, please do so at It Slays Podcast. And Rowan, tell them where to find our playlist.
Yeah, so you can go to Spotify, look up the It Slays Podcast Horrific Playlist. You can also go into any of our social media descriptions, go into the link tree. We've got a button there you can just click, and we upload music that we enjoy from the movies we review, or just iconic horror music. And we're wrapping up summer, we're getting in the spooky season, so you gotta start listening to that stuff now. Get in the mood. I'm starting to get the emails from Spirit Halloween asking do you want a job, because we need people to work. And if I could, I would. If I could, I would.
So next time on the show, we have a little bit of a scheduling conflict. I don't know how this is going to work out yet, but we might be reviewing Bodies. We could be reviewing Prey. It could be They/Them, or maybe all three of them. We're not quite sure yet. We're gonna figure it out, so stay tuned. But yeah, something, at least one of those is gonna be coming your way at the beginning of August, and possibly 2 or 3. So just stay tuned for that. And
we're doing our best, damn it.
Yeah, we're doing our best. There's a lot on the go behind the scenes, and obviously 3 movies. 3 review discussions, and Rowan editing those 3 things. It'll take up a little bit of time probably to get that all done. So just, stay with us, bear with us. And with that, I think that pretty much wraps things up for this week. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.